Those were a couple of really interesting episodes. There wasn't really all too much to them, per se, in terms of depth, but right near the end of episode 6, we really got a lot of interesting stuff, so let's talk about it. So yes, if you couldn't tell already, we're talking about both episode 5 and 6. I watched episode 5 and was like, there wasn't really enough here in this episode to justify an entire video on its own. So I combined it with episode 6, and the two episodes go together really well anyway, so I think it works. So yeah, episode 5 continues exactly where we left off, with 4 minutes of recap. Yeah, I timed it, it was 3 minutes and 50 seconds of recap. Now, don't get me wrong, episodes beginning with a little bit of recap to kind of catch you up on things that have happened, just in case it's been a little while since you've watched or anything. That's fine. The problem is it's 3 minutes 50 seconds of recap, which is a lot, considering the episode as a whole is like 21 minutes. But also, it didn't really recap us on anything we would have particularly forgot. It's literally just clips from episode 3 and 4 and stuff that's really obviously memorable. It's not like it's bringing us back to speed with some lore stuff or anything, but whatever, I don't mind. It's just a weird waste of time, and I don't really see the point in it. But then after that, we basically, we pick up where we left off with Mark card fighting Gonami, and that's the episode, basically. Not much else really happens in that episode apart from that one card fight, and I'm happy with that. It also means there isn't really that much to talk about in terms of content of the episode for me particularly, because I don't really usually go too in-depth with what happens in the card fight and stuff, because I'm not usually caught up in all the meta stuff and everything. But that's fine, I don't mind that. I think we should be getting more card fights, and it was a fun card fight. It is weird that we keep seeing Mark card fight so much. He's been getting more screen time than Shin in terms of card fights so far, and I don't hate it. In fact, I'll bring that point up again in a little bit when we get to episode 6. It just feels weird that Mark specifically seems to be the character who's getting all the screen time. I would have expected it to be Tachibana, honestly. So yeah, the card fight was good. Seeing Gonami's deck was really neat. And I can't even say the episode was a waste of an episode or anything, because it was there to really set up the stakes for episode 6. It was showing us how powerful Gonami truly was before we get to the actual real deal card fight. And I like it. Other people probably call this episode filler because not much really happens in it other than just that one card fight, but I still liked it. It served that purpose in terms of setting up the stakes and really setting up Gonami as a villain. So let's go straight into episode 6 now, because, well, yeah, that was basically all there was to really say about episode 5. So episode 6 is Shin entering the picture and challenging Gonami to a card fight as well. The stakes are that if Gonami wins, then Asuka just straight up gets card capital, and if Shin wins, then Gonami has to apologize for not taking Mark seriously enough. And I like that. Asuka points out, I think it's Asuka that points that out, that literally anyone else would have, asked for a lot more in return than just a simple apology. Like, this could have been the card fight that just ended the entire story arc if we really wanted it to be. But that says a lot about Shin as a character. And luckily, even though this is an episode that's very obviously supposed to be Gonami's focus episode, it actually explored Shin a lot more than I was expecting to as well. First of all, we finally get to see Shin card fight. I'm not including episode 2 because, yeah, episode 2 was basically a joke and we only got little bits and pieces of card fight, so I don't really count that. And if we're not counting episode 2, then the only other time we've seen Shin card fight is episode 1. So they've really made us wait, considering that Shin is supposedly the protagonist and the person the arc is named after. But if you remember, I actually praised this all the way back with Link Joker, because I said that it was really cool that it set up Aichi as the protagonist in Link Joker, but then really made us wait for him to card fight. He would only card fight very few and very far between, and this is a really cool technique because it gets the audience actively excited to see the protagonist card fight again. rather than just taking them for granted and seeing them card fight in every single episode. So I really like that. I really like CardFight Vanguard's focus on having a big, large, extended cast, that it gives a lot of focus to like all the characters individually, not just the protagonist. That's really cool. And it meant that this card fight in episode 6 actually felt like it was important. Even if, it, again, in the grand scheme of things, not necessarily. Again, Shin does win, and all we get from that is, well, an apology to Mark, and that's about it. Of course, the stuff that happens during the card fight is really important, but they did a good job of really making this feel like a card fight that would impact the story a lot. During this card fight too, we see a lot of Gonami's backstory, how she got to this point, and basically her backstory is that she grew up being very competent and good at everything. She constantly aced exams, she did really well at sports, that kind of thing, and it just got boring. It made her feel isolated. No one really wanted to be near her because she was too good at everything. And it was then that she discovered CardFight Vanguard, and she entered and started playing at Estika's shop, and she loses against Estika, and that feeling of finally losing at something that really gave her motivation and really made her want to be a card fighter. And it's because of this that she becomes an S rank and becomes basically Estika's right-hand man. And that's neat. I did wonder that because of this backstory, because Gonami has only lost once and never asked for a rematch since, that I was wondering that maybe Gonami is like afraid of taking a rematch because she's like afraid that she would win and her purpose would be lost again. But no, later on in the episode they do just say no, she just genuinely doesn't think she would be able to win. And I don't think that's an as interesting explanation for it, but at the same time it really bounces off of Shin's philosophy really well too, because Shin has a quote, a really important quote actually, that he uses as his like kind of mantra in this episode, and it's, "Luck is a gift, but you can only take advantage of it if you're willing to keep fighting." And it's basically the idea that, like, yes, Shin very much flies by the seat of his pants when it comes to card fighting, and he does heavily rely on high risk, high reward and using luck. But the only reason he gets that luck in the first place is because he's willing to keep fighting, unlike Gonami, who gives up at any sign of kind of weakness and constantly tells her opponents to also give up at any sign of weakness. It kind of reminds me of G-Next with Kazuma and Chrono. It reminded me of that a lot actually, where Kazuma would give up at card fighting a lot. So that was an interesting parallel. And yeah, Shin wins the card fight. It was a really entertaining card fight once again. I'm really, really happy. I cannot overstate how happy I am that they are actually just letting us watch the card fights. That was neat. And it was cool to see all the characters crowded around watching, actually enjoying the card fight, being invested in it. That's good too. Even Mikuru, who doesn't really care about card fighting, was helping commentate over it. Side note, the animators very, very quickly seemed to forget that she was even wearing makeup. Like, at the beginning of episode 5, she kind of had a bit of it on, but then by the end of episode 5, it had completely faded, and then episode 6, I don't think we see her wear any makeup at all. Maybe a little bit on her cheeks, but definitely no eyeshadow or lip gloss. And makeup doesn't work like that. Makeup lasts a lot longer than, like, the handful of minutes that she had it on for, but oh well. Minor nitpick. Again, very, very minor nitpick. But yeah, I like that the card fight was very tense, though, because if Shin lost, he would have lost the card fight, and I knew he wasn't going to lose. There's no way he was going to lose this card fight this early on, but there was still a little bit of, like, that niggling thought in the back of my mind that, like, what if that is actually what this story arc is about? What if it is genuinely about Shin losing the card fight to Gonami and trying to win it back again for the rest of the duration of the arc? That didn't happen, but that would have been neat, and it did kind of give that idea that, like, oh, maybe he will lose. So yeah, other than that, we end with Estika finally revealing that she and Shin both had the same mentor when it came to looking after card shops and stuff, and that was actually Misaki's dad. And Misaki's dad was the one who gave Shin his mantra from earlier. And that's where we end. We end with Estika revealing that, and I'm interested to see where things go next. I'm really interested to see where things go next. Yeah, it's difficult to tell, really. It is really... The weird thing is, and I kind of like it, especially for a kind of slice of lifey sort of arc, is that Estika and her forces, like, I always call them villains because that is technically the role they play in the story. Like, if Shin is the hero, then Estika is the villain. but she doesn't necessarily feel like a villain. You know, it's not like Gonami, Fujinomi, and Asuka really do all that much evil stuff other than the kidnapping. But even then, in episode 4 and 5, they try and go out of their way to explain away that, like, no, it wasn't really a kidnapping, not really. And I quite like that. I think it brings something new and different to the table. And it also, again, is kind of refreshing that we don't really have very many villains. It is really just Asuka, Fujinomi, and Gonami. And there are more people working for Asuka and stuff, but they don't really get given anything to do. And I think that's fine because having less villains means you can focus on them more. Hence why we got Gonami's backstory in this episode. And I genuinely don't really know where things are going next. I feel like we're probably heading towards some kind of shop tournament. If I was to guess, I would guess that there would be some kind of shop tournament, and the victor of the shop tournament gets to kind of decide who gets the card capital. So it would be a tournament between Shin and his friends and Asuka and her friends. That's what my guess would be, but honestly, other than that, I don't really know. As for what will happen in the next episode specifically, I don't know. And that's neat. I really enjoyed this episode. Not the deepest episode in the world, definitely nowhere near as deep as episode 4, as funny as that sounds. But it didn't really need to be. Not every episode really needs to be very deep. This was just some fun, classic style sort of card game anime shonen. And I really like that. I'm looking forward to seeing how things progress. And I'll see you later with, I guess, episode 7. Wow, we're making our way through surprisingly fast here, actually.